'Twas the night before fantasy championships, as read by me, Chris Mangano. 'Twas the night before fantasy championships, and all through the leagues, not a point was to be scored from these fantasy thieves. Gus Edwards exploding on everyone's bench, while Sutton let off a fantasy stench. Touchdowns from players we've never even heard of: Burton, Davis, Haskins, not one from Ladd. Then on Saturday we saw Dell outscore Nico, while running back Mixon gave you a stinko. More touchdowns to players no one is starting, Likely and Pruitt, and even a Patterson? Where is Freiermuth, King Henry, and Zay? What a terrible, terrible fantasy day. Fantasy players woke up Sunday morning with hope in their heads, but plenty of fantasy players decided instead to wet the bed. Brian Robinson Jr. couldn't hold on to the ball, fumbling twice, not scoring at all. Tony Pollard again played through the pain, but fantasy points, he did not make it rain. And Cooper Kupp continued to suck, while fantasy players screamed, "What the f***?" Michael Pittman was a bust all year. Even for Christmas, he brought you no holiday cheer. Jerry Jeudy had been carrying teams, but a quarterback change ended those dreams. Garrett Wilson once again played second fiddle to Adams. It was another lost year for anyone that had him. And while Michael Penix Jr. looked solid in his debut, it wasn't enough for Drake London to boom. Nor was Kyler playing well enough for Marv. More busts and booms this year by far. Jalen Hurts was one of the best fantasy QBs all year, but when it mattered most, he got hurt and left teams in tears. As had Trey McBride, who finally had a bad week. Hopefully he didn't end your fantasy dream. And Travis Kelce continues to look like dust, ending your season as one of this year's biggest busts. Any help for the late slate to save your season went out the window without any reason. Jefferson and Addison proved weather worries were overblown, but it still didn't help Walker, Hawkinson, or Aaron Jones. And after destroying fantasy for 2 weeks in a row, Josh Allen fantasy managers let out an "oh no," not even 200 yards, only one touchdown and a pick. Even the rushing wasn't that slick. And while Brian Thomas Jr. continued to feast, Aiden O'Connell wasn't enough to make Jacoby a beast. And Deebo Samuel decided to have a vintage week. Too bad it was too late for his and your teams. And Tyreek scored, but what else did he do? And Ramondre Stevenson, another fumble-roo. But no matter how your team did this week or this year, a huge thank you from myself and Pierre. And of course, Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Except you, Derek Carr. No, I'm just kidding. Merry Christmas even to you, Derek. But Aaron Rodgers, bah humbug.